In a previous video, I went through my treasure box of collectibles, but I had a whole lot more in storage, and we just recently went through, we're cleaning out storage and moving everything around. But I did find 3 big bins with a lot of stuff. While all of this stuff on the table is old, not a lot of it is antique, but it has a lot of memories, and a lot of this stuff I actually used on the job. But I found one thing that I really missed, was my CSX mechanical jacket. Very warm. I've spent a lot of time wearing that underneath locomotives, changing out brake shoes and that sort of thing. It's a nice heavy jacket. I missed it. Now this is a wide variety of stuff, and you're probably noticing multiple railroads. And yes, I'm one of those guys that worked for multiple railroads during my railroad career. CSX, Norfolk Southern, and Amtrak. I always loved when they gave us hats on the railroad. Like this CSX Baltimore Service Lane hat. I really loved these things. Baltimore Division, Baltimore Service Lane. This old CSX hat that obviously I wore to death. A lot of carmen, a lot of mechanical engineering forces wear these hats. And here's one they gave us, Team Riverside. Yep, I worked at Riverside Locomotive Shop in Baltimore. This is probably my favorite hat. And I wish I would have taken better care of these over the years. Operation Red Block. And this little goofy thing here. This is all stuff that they gave us over the years. Norfolk Southern. Look at that. See, we all had to wear those in the beginning. Nice. Piedmont Division, I worked out of Manassas, Virginia. And Vulcan. I believe the guys at Vulcan Materials gave us that because I worked on one of the rock trains one time and they were handing those out. I think I mentioned these in a previous video. These are throttle keys or throttle levers. This is obviously brass. It's very heavy. I don't know what year they stopped using these heavy things and started using the little cheap plastic things. Maybe somebody can comment and let me know. One of the older guys. Now, this bag here was actually my working bag, and this is where I put all my gear when I worked for Norfolk Southern as a conductor. This was a NORAC signal chart that I kept in the bag. Some of this stuff I kept in the bag, some of this I didn't. BLE, I was a BLE member. Safety glasses. CSX mechanical. Flashlight. I used to use it in, I don't know if I have the holster, like one of those things there. And the lantern, the infamous CSX lantern. I love those things. In a previous video, I had these handsets out. These are different ones. These are actually in addition to, but they're old handsets. I think there's a Grand Trunk Western in here. Yeah. Nice. Here's an old radio, and I want to say that was maybe from Norfolk Southern. I don't know, and I don't know why I have it. CSX operating rules. Here is a test that I have a copy of. So you could cheat. Well, you really don't need to cheat because the first question for conductors and engineers is to find restricted speed. Can you do that? On Norfolk Southern, at least at the time, it was a speed not exceeding 15 miles an hour that will allow you to stop in half your range of vision, something like that. Right? Am I right? How about slow speed? Out of service tags, working in CSX mechanical back in the day. Now I have a bunch of B&O inscribed tools. This isn't one of them, but it is a brass ruler from one of the car shops in Baltimore. And I think they were tearing it down and we were over there one day. But that thing is heavy and it's really nice. You know what this is? Yeah, that's a temporary rear end marker preceding EOTs. I think this came off of Amtrak. It was probably used in the rear of a coach for some reason. I think I found it on a caboose one time. It was down under a bunch of rubble. These are some magazines somebody gave me, and I don't know why. I think just because they knew I worked for the railroad, so they gave me these magazines. Sentimental, Sentimental. This is a letter from a guy that I used to work with, and his name was Chuck. That guy. Chuck was a guy I used to work with, and when I was leaving CSX, He was going to miss me, so he wrote me a letter, but it was really funny. He was always a jokester. Work vest. Now check this out. December of 2000, train jumps tracks in city. And the city they're talking about is Manassas, Virginia, and that's my train. I was on that train with Jamie Hensley, and we derailed a bunch of cars there coming around the Y by the yard office. And I'm not going to get into the whole specifics of what happened. What the hell, why not? So Jamie and I were called out of the hotel in Hagerstown, and we taxied down to the Virginia Inland Port to pick up this intermodal train that had gone dead on the main line. Well, when we picked it up, the dispatcher came on and asked us to pick up every car in the VIP lot that they were clearing it out. So the problem was paperwork. Lack thereof. There was no paperwork for these additional cars, so we didn't know the length or the weight or anything about these cars. I called the dispatcher and told him that we couldn't take these cars without the proper paperwork, and he forwarded that over to the trainmaster, who then in turn called me and sent us some paperwork via fax at the VIP office. Now, I don't know where he got this paperwork for all these additional cars, but unfortunately it was wrong. Well, the paperwork said that we were one length, and when we got to those sidings that we thought we'd fit in, we didn't. So they gave us a straight run all the way to Manassas, and when we got to Manassas, we went around that 16-degree curve, and boom. I think it was a total of 16 cars that went on their side, and I don't think any of them had hazmats in them, but they were all containers and that sort of thing. But the worst part of this is the fact that the train, as it did a string line motion, took out a bunch of cars in the parking lot, and the parking lot was the employee cars, one of them being my engineer, Jamie Hensley. So when all was said and done, it was just kind of swept under the rug. Nobody's fault. But I thought you'd all enjoy that little story. Oh, and in that box I did find this old scanner. That's really old. And I better show you this too. These are original pictures that somebody gave me of the Amtrak crash in Silver Spring, Maryland back in, what was that, 86? But these are original pictures from on the scene, and I'm definitely not going to tell you who took them because that person still works out there. And these are obviously copies, they're not the only ones somebody has. But this was the Amtrak and MARC train crash. Needless to say, nothing's been done on the layout since the last video, but I did want to show you some of this stuff in the meantime. If you want to see what I've been doing in my real life, other than working on the layout, you can go over to my personal channel. I'll put a link in the description, or you can just type it in. It's youtube.com/I'm Joey Ricard. No apostrophe. See you next time.